Welcome to Cake on Tuesday, where we spotlight the rule breakers, the underdogs who refuse to listen when everyone said it won't work. I'm Elizabeth Bieniek, and for the next 20 minutes, we're diving into another disruptive innovation story that proves sometimes the craziest ideas change everything. Today's guest is Dawn Kennedy. Now, don't try to put her in a box because she simply will not fit. She is an attorney and a business consultant and an entrepreneur. She is the CEO of Convoy Road Coffee Roasters, the host of the Business Mastery podcast, and her consulting practice. She takes her unique approach that combines her legal expertise with operational experience and helps small business owners understand what's actually happening in their business, which is not always what they think is happening in their business. Dawn, I love this. You're combining all the things. My grandmother used to tell me you can do everything, but you can't do it at once. I'm thinking you're giving her a run for your money, though, because you're doing all the things at once. So please say hello to our audience and tell us a little bit about what sets your soul on fire.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited for this, Elizabeth. I'm looking forward to it. So what sets my soul on fire? It's actually, if we strip everything away, it's protecting small businesses. Protecting them from legal vulnerabilities, operational vulnerabilities, and teaching us to come back to the idea that we actually may know a little bit about what we're doing as business owners more than the people who we see on social media or the ads. There's, a lot of research out there over the last 10 years or so, how we have exchanged speed, and we call it efficiency, but it's actually a little chaotic, instead of going back and looking at what I now am going to refer to doctrine, but strategic intelligence for our business and why it is we're doing what we're doing in the way that we're doing, and having an internal framework so that we can make decisions and it's more than core values. I mean, it's literally like, what are we doing in this business? And the best example I can give you is a lot of times it's like, what won't you do in your business? So to your point, Convoy Road Coffee Roasters, it's our family business. We've been around 5 years. We are production manufacturing. We are a roastery. We just competed actually in the World Coffee Cup with one of our blends. That is what we do. I am not getting up at 5 a.m. to make your coffee because I don't do it for myself. And I don't want to run a coffee shop. Like, that was not the thing. And it's very difficult sometimes when you talk to other people because they're like, well, can I swing by? And it's like, no, we're not doing croissants and coffee. We don't do that. And it's the idea of, do you know your business and what your business does? So the other thing is, we don't put flavors in coffee. If you want a blueberry buckle coffee, I will send you over to Deaf Dog, who is also in our area, who does phenomenal flavored coffees. But inside our roasters, we'll never do it. And here's the question is, even if it became the thing that almost everyone drank, and it was the most profitable line that ever was presented to the public, would we do it? And the answer is absolutely not. So it becomes the idea that this is the framework by which we make decisions in our business. And I think sometimes it's easier to describe by, do you know what your business won't do? Because I think sometimes when you ask people what they will do, you're going to get a lot of different answers that may be decisions that were made over time. But if you don't define up front the actual framework for decisions in your business, then you could be pulled a lot of places. And I'm not saying it doesn't evolve. I'm saying there are things that should be kind of non-negotiable for yourself. And another example of this is, branding might say how we say something, but the structure and the framework is going to ask you, well, why are we saying it at all? Who are we talking to? Why are we even going out there in the world? So it's less about the how and just much more about, well, why? Why do we do it this way? And unfortunately, over the last number of years, a lot of times the why is related to an external thing, like, well, the algorithm changed, or everyone's jumping on TikTok shop, or, oh, that platform is going to go away, or, well, there's this other external force or reason. And unless there's a governance change or a regulatory change or something like that, that forces you to change, we should be able to articulate and kind of be able to say, these are the non-negotiables in our business. Everything else is negotiable until it isn't, but these are the non-negotiables, and this is how we do it, but this is underlying why we do it. And I think if we got back a little bit to that why we're doing it, and not the fluffy, like, why do we serve? I mean, like the real deal, why are we doing this? I think we would make better decisions at a snapshot in time, because if we have those, we also have permission to pause and really think about all the options and all the opportunities, and then pick the right one for the moment, because businesses do evolve. It's dynamic. And the decision that worked 6 months ago may not work today.
Right. Okay. So I think that's huge. You're hitting on something really, really important here, because I think a lot of times for businesses, when they're first starting out, it can be the terrifying feat of, what do I do? Because that means I don't do a lot of things. And everyone is always worried about, well, can I be all things to all people, because then I have better opportunity? But in reality, the opposite is usually true. The more niche you are, the more focused you are, the more clear you are. I spend some of my time consulting with startup owners who specifically in the tech space. And a lot of times getting to that, how do you define what your core value is in the simplest way possible? And there's always that temptation of, yeah, but I don't want to say no to this, but I don't want to say no to this. How do you face that when you're dealing with a business owner and there are a little bit of too many things to too many people? Right. Where do you start with them?
So the foundational question I will start with, and the strategic intelligence framework, is intelligence gathering. So like business intelligence that you would have an enterprise, but it's a framework that's been scaled down for small business owners to be able to do it themselves. And AI is democratizing the research project and progress so that you can actually gather the intelligence and figure out what's the most important for you to make a decision on. When someone says to me, well, I want to be all things to all people, my number one question back is, why do people give you money? And you would be amazed at the answers that people will give you. And the more they say, I don't know, the more I have to ask them, well, why do people give you money? Like, what do you see yourself exchanging? Because it's not always what people see. So I'll go back to coffee as the first example. Why do people give us money in coffee? Well, because it is a take-home product that they really enjoy. Maybe they buy the beans because they want to have that experience for themselves of grinding in the morning. But ultimately, there's a convenience factor. There is factors outside of the exchange or the transaction that you need to be able to articulate. So as a lawyer, why do people give me money? Well, it could be to keep me out of trouble. It could be because somebody filed something, but it also, really could be because they trust me to do it without overbilling, or we built this relationship over time and they're going to come to me for a referral, maybe for some other area. Like, I don't do divorce or probate or any of that other stuff. I'm strictly a business lawyer. So they trust me to help them find somebody else. So there's something in there beyond why people give you money. And it isn't necessarily the transactional piece of it. And when you dig down and you look underneath, you can also find gaps where, well, could they give me money for this other reason? Or, hey, is there a place here where I could partner with somebody else because this service could be an add-on with value? And you can start to look and see where your business can evolve, where there may be gaps in either your services or your products or in the delivery of your services and products that can help you evolve, as we were talking about, but within that framework of decision making that says this is our DNA. This is even deeper than our core values, which our core values could very much be trust and service and that sort of description, but it's in the how. How do they trust us? Well, because we respond within 24 hours. Is that written somewhere in your business? Is that doctrinal in your business that if somebody does this, this is the flow? That if this happens, this is who makes that decision. Like, hey, we have a supply chain issue, like a serious supply chain issue. What are we going to do about this? Who is the person who is supposed to handle that, and how is it handled? Do we take a line of credit? Do we do it this way? What do we do? If a decision needs to be made past a certain point, who needs to be in the room? Most of the time, small businesses don't really think through that until it's a crisis. But after the crisis, they don't document it. So they can't hand it off to somebody else later to say, this is our process. This is our doctrine. These are our right and left limits. And this is how we manage business. This is how we actually do it.
Yeah.
So I think, and you don't have to do like a 200-page manual. I'm talking about just documenting.
It's written down somewhere.
Who are we when those decisions are being made? When we show up and do our best decision making, what does that look like? What does it look like? Who needs to be in the room? What data do you need? And I think it would mitigate some of the chaos in some small businesses if the next time a decision looks like this, then this is all we need to do, and we'll get the people, with the brains in the room to do the thing. But we really don't. So somebody says, oh no, the algorithm changed. It's like, well, what do we do? And then we run to this, and then we, throw ad spend or do whatever, instead of sitting down and going, well, it changed on this platform. How much do we work on this platform? Do we get a lot of business from this platform? Is there another way to reach out to those people? Do we need to respond right now? Can we give it 10 days? Can we continue to read the documentation that's coming out? Because it drops and drips. They don't just like, here's all the algorithm changes. Because if they did, or maybe they do, and I'm just blind to it, there's like 11 videos that come out from people saying, here's what it means for you. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
So, we don't give ourselves that permission to pause, because the way that, and I'm going to throw private equity under the bus. I apologize if somebody listening here is private equity, but it's thrown gas on the fire because they think in quarters. They don't think in years. They don't think 2 years or 10 years. Structure sort of went out the window a little bit, because it's what happens in the next quarter that determines whether or not shareholders are happy. The patience that we now have for saying we're making this investment, we should see something back in 3 quarters. It is a harder sell than it used to be even just a few years ago. People expect it now. They expect everything to turn very quickly. And we have exhausted business owners and exhausted, like, everybody is like, my gosh, at the speed and complexity of the market, how do you keep up? How do you decide? I have an article that'll be coming out in a couple of weeks on, hey, we're getting ready to go to Q4. And once we get to almost Black Friday, it's like, look at all the plates that are spinning on your things. And it's like, which ones are allowed to fall? Make the decision up front. Which ones are allowed to fall? And you know what? It's okay if you bring store-bought cookies. Nobody cares. You don't have to make them. You don't have to stay up until 2 a.m. to impress your kindergarten class. You can bring store-bought this year. And if your mother-in-law gives you side-eye, say, hey, so what? So you have to decide sort of what's important, and you decide up front, what can we let go of for the short term? What is the strategy to get back on track afterwards? Where are we collecting the data of, the things that have come in that are going to need addressing? And again, that comes back to what is most important to us and what are our decision frameworks. And strategic intelligence, right? Gathering all the intelligence, reducing it, and making the decisions from it is really, in a lot of ways, something that we haven't given priority to anymore. Because the way it looks is, if you're not reacting, you're not responding, you're dead. You're a dead company. You're not being as ambitious. You're not, and there is a connotation that if you are not reacting instantly to things, that you don't care. And that's really a hard thing to think about as well, that people will say, oh, that business. And you'll hear them, it's like, well, they didn't do X. Okay. Maybe there's a reason they didn't do X. We just don't give any credit to the individuality of businesses really anymore. We see everybody as kind of the same.
So on this, you talk about why small businesses need adapted enterprise tools. And you're talking a little bit about this, like, time frame that you're operating on is different. What else do you see as the core differences? Why just enterprise tools, you can't just take those and use them as is? What needs to change? What's unique about the small business space?
That is a great question. So most of the time, small businesses are not going to be driving consumer perception. They're not going to be driving where the market is going. And if you look at the Amazons and you look at all of the larger companies, their floors of analysts are collecting all the data from the National Retail Federation and all of these other places. And they're months and months ahead looking at where the markets and things are going. But they also get to decide consumer behavior. And my favorite example of this is Nestle, who is an adjacent market to a coffee business because they make creamer. So back in September of 2023, we were getting ready to sit down and have our Q4 planning session and put everything together. I had a bunch of people there in the room, and I hooked up my computer to the larger screen because I had to plug it in, don't ask. And this 15-second spot came up on YouTube, and it said, Coffee Mate. You can buy or you can make 20 coffee-style house coffees at home for the price of one takeout. Coffee Mate. And I went, oh, that is interesting. That is so, it like stopped the presses because Coffee Mate prior to that was explore the French vanilla, put your feet up on the hammock, take a break, you deserve it. It was very experiential.
Yeah.
They switched to value. I don't have Nestle's marketing budget, and I will never, ever have Nestle's marketing budget. And Nestle made that for a reason. Something in their data, the macroeconomics, whatever it was, they decided to relate better to our customers coming up in 2024. Because remember, this was the end of 23. We need to be talking value. And they really started kind of doubling down on that. Now, I'm not arrogant enough to believe that I could say, well, my customers don't care about that. They don't care. I'm just going to keep doing it the way I'm doing it and everything will be fine. So I went, oh, no. They're going to value. We didn't slash prices immediately. We started adding value. So we created recipe books and we started giving people other reasons to buy and use our coffee. And we would put things out on Facebook for free. Here's a recipe for a Valentine's latte. Here is this. Here is that. Here's how you make these syrups. Like just things that demonstrated if you purchase our coffee, it doesn't have to just be your daily drink. Like we can make it special because we understand we're a special coffee. It's a little bit more. Maybe you can only enjoy us on the weekends now, but we're going to make sure that we are adding so much value that you feel like your discretionary income being put here is a value and a benefit. So
I like this. You take the research of the big company and
right.
I'm going to apply this in my small business. That's fantastic.
Correct. And that I think is very much missing in the small business space. And I can tell you why. A few years ago, I was working with a client that was deciding whether or not to take something wholesale or to do a little more retail. They had a brick and mortar and they had some wholesale things. And the question really became, who is the ideal partner to try to pitch this to, right? What is the price? All the things. And the manual need to go and look at Yelp reviews and the manual need to go and find the decision maker and the manual need to go and, figure out, do they have something comparable on the menu? Should we be looking at caterers? Who should we be looking at as a partner? Now with AI, I'm telling you, you can take a prompt, a strategic intelligence prompt, and you can put it in there and you can say, please identify for me the 25, restaurants within 25 miles that serve this, that don't have this on their menu, that do catering, that do this, do that. Please identify the decision maker, Yelp reviews, and that kind of thing. And it'll return it to you. It might take just a couple minutes. But I did a video on this. It took about 2 minutes and 35 seconds. I put in this prompt that basically said, please identify consumer trends at different price points, what people plan to spend this year, how they plan to buy, who they plan to buy for and at what price point. And I was able to get data from the National Retail Federation and Buy Now, Pay Later and all these things. And we uncovered things like about $250 this year, people are going to be looking for the stores that have Buy Now, Pay Later. Used to be sort of a layaway sort of thing. And with the Buy Now, Pay Later, if you are a small business owner in October and you had that information, if you didn't already have like a PayPal Pay in 4 setup, or you didn't already have some sort of way to do that, you would have time and space to sit back and go, What will we allow that to go through? How do we want this to work? Who is going to take the risk? Those sorts of things. But without that data, you're going to come up into November and it's going to be almost Black Friday. And someone's going to go, oh, I would have bought from you, but I was able to buy over here and make 4 equal payments without interest. It's because we have the data of how people are expecting to do this that small businesses really can adapt and evolve and take advantage of the fact that this data exists. It was just manually very difficult to do. If you had to go out and look at Statista and look at your industry stuff and look at all the crazy, it's like, no, let's do it. Let's use AI for the research. You have the citations. You can reduce the data. You can look at what's most important to you. You can look at things like buy cycle, right? How often are people buying ahead? How often are they buying last minute? You can get a real understanding in your industry. And you can ask the same thing regionally. And you can ask the same thing
Right.
locally. So there's really no reason anymore for us to be flying blind as small business owners, because what used to take weeks of manual effort can be done in minutes. And then you set aside the time, you grab your cup of coffee or your wine or however you plan your business. And if you don't, I would encourage you to start building that structure. And then you can make those decisions for your business. And, we have basically our coffee is like a $20 product. It has a different hit to the market because $20 is below that $50 threshold, which is, considered, they only have to see us a couple times to decide to buy. There's just so much that is out there that when you really understand the psychographics and your customer, and I'm not going to get into innovators and early adopters and all that, but it's the idea that data is now readily available to you and you should be using it and you should be building out these decision frameworks and you should not be afraid to sit down and say, you know what, we've inherited our doctrine from years of just doing business and, we can't necessarily recreate it, but we can start from now. This is how we do this. And it's not an SOP. If you think about it, this is the operating system in your business, like hums in the background. It's the logic of how we do things. And then all your apps and all your strategy and everything sit on top of it. Because again, even if flavored coffee became the most popular drink in the world, we would never offer it. That is our DNA. We have a very specific DNA that belongs to our company, and we won't veer from that.
So I want to pull that thread just a little bit and combine that with my where are you excited to go next question. So you tapped on something that I think is really important of using AI as a research assistant or as a support. I think a lot of people make the mistake of just putting a random question into ChatGPT or Grok or whatever interface they use and treat it just like an internet search. When in reality, if you do that step further of please act like my research assistant, my brand strategist, my whatever the case, you get much more rich feedback because you're giving direction about how I want this. I'm sure that has drastically changed your business, as it has drastically changed many businesses, but where are you most excited about going forward with the implementation of AI in your existing practice?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So I'm going to answer this 2 different ways. So as a lawyer, there's been a lot of people getting spanked around the world for AI hallucination. So I'm just going to say, I don't use AI as an attorney. There are tools inside things like LexisNexis and that kind of stuff where it can help retrieve cases and things like that. You can plug in something that says, please provide, cases over the last 3 years that interpreted this statute, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And it can go in and do that instead of the manual stuff. On the other side, I would say that it is used and abused. And one of the reasons that it's sort of used and abused is because you can use it not just for the research. I actually have a client who is a consultant in a very niche field, and they have built actually like database type stuff where you can plug in this very niche software tool that is in that industry and import the data into what he has sort of built as a layer. And the AI can then go out and like pull data from other areas that are important to making decisions in that niche. So you can actually use it. Now, I haven't built that out yet, but I've seen it done. It's fantastic. I think AI is going to really assist in the data collection and the data reduction and helping with the decisions. And I've also seen it where, and I have loaded things into AI. I've loaded documents and reports and research and things that I've done. And I've said things like, of this research or of this whatever, what are the key, I guess, threads coming out of this that are, what people are searching online right now and those kinds of things. And it can pull all of that data together and you can check yourself as to relevancy in what you are, writing or what you are, because I don't know, not everybody, but my brain will get an idea and it'll chase the little rabbit down the hall. And then the last question for me is, so what? It should be the first, but it's not. Most of the time, it's the very last one. So I did it last night. I wrote an article and my husband read the article and he was like, so what? And I was like, okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Let me go back and see what the so what is. But it's that kind of thing where you can utilize it even to help you with your own clarity, using your own work. You don't have to just use and pull from external sources. You can actually build projects and do things within AI that will basically help you sort of either niche down or answer the so what, or help you spot trends. I will ask it all the time, of X, Y, and Z, what are the gaps I'm not addressing? Of the XYZ, where do you see pushback? Of the XYZ. And I've asked it, who's going to be offended by this? And they will tell you. It'll say, based on the research. And here's the other thing. It also returns resources sometimes that I don't even know about. So there's a new book that I'm reading now that is a business. It is going to affect business and community. It's a business book, but it's not listed as business book. It's listed as governance and policy because of the way that the ISBN went and everything else. I never would have found it. It would not have come up in my recommended reading. But through my research, it came up. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I haven't heard of that book before. That's cool. So that's the other thing is you can definitely use it to add layers of information that you didn't consider by asking it if it sees gaps.
Yeah. Awesome. Dawn, we could go on for hours and hours, as always. Where can people find more about you, your coffee company, your business consulting practice, your attorney practice? Where can people find you?
I appreciate that. So I'm Dawn K. Kennedy. There's a lot of Dawn Kennedys. There's 3 of us actually licensed by the state bar. There's 3 Dawn Kennedys. I get calls sometimes about, hey, you wrote my dad's trust. It's like, no, I didn't, but I know who did. So it's Dawn K. Kennedy and it's .com, and you can find me on most of the socials. There's a YouTube channel that has some videos in there breaking down some of this, and it tells you how to do a strategic plan really easily. If you're a small business owner, you don't know where to start or anything, it'll tell you how to do market research if you haven't in a long time. And coffee is Convoy Road Coffee Roasters. We're a roastery. We're in Van Wert, Ohio. And if you're in the area, you're welcome to stop by. If you ask my husband a question, you'll be here 4 days. So I caution against coming in and asking Mike anything. But yeah, we give tours. We'll show people around. If you've never seen a naked coffee bean, we're happy to show that to you as well.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Dawn.
Thank you. It's been great. I appreciate you having me on.
Thanks for joining another Cake on Tuesday celebration of beautiful disruption. Please share it, review it, and find more innovative stories at podcast.cakeontuesday.com. I'm Elizabeth Bienik. Be bold, stay curious. Now go have some cake.